So what's our first step on 13? You got to figure out what is the solution. Okay.
Yeah, we could.
That's a quadratic. That's a quadratic, so we're going to get two solutions, and we're going to add them up. So whatever the two solutions are, we're going to add them together and come up. It'll be one of those four answers. So in handling this quadratic, what's the best thing to do first? Always look to see if you can simplify it.
Okay. We can take out a 2.
Okay, let's do that, because that simplifies it a lot. In other words, that makes it that. And the reason that's a lot is because now we have a 1 as the coefficient in front of m squared. So if it were factorable, we'd be able to factor it now. Unfortunately, it doesn't take much to realize that there's no way you're factoring this. There's no way I'm going to multiply 4 times m and 1 times m to come up with 8m. So I can't get to 8, which means I got to do what if I can't factor it? Can't factor quadratic, what do you do?
Yeah. I do not know.
Quadratic formula.
Oh, okay.
They're asking at least one question on the quadratic formula on each tests. So I would count on having to know it. And that's not one of the ones they give you at the beginning of the section. They give you a lot of geometric formulas, but they don't give you things like the quadratic formula. So what's the quadratic formula equal to? What's the general? It's minus b.
Equals plus or minus b.
Just minus b.
Oh, minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
There you go. That's what you got to memorize. Once you have this memorized, then it's just a question of plugging in for, it's not really hard. People act like this is hard, but the math is relatively straightforward. So
yeah, that's pretty easy.
Okay. What's minus b?
So 8, because it's going to be positive with the minus.
Okay. Plus or minus the square root of 64.
So, yep. Minus 4 AC 4K.
A is 1.
All over 2A.
All over 2. In other words, we're plugging in for A, B, and C to come up with this. Okay. Now, if we simplify this, we get 8 plus or minus the square root. 64 minus 16 is 48.
48? Yeah.
Over 2. Now, we can take a 2 out. In other words, a 4 is a factor of 48, right? So I'm going to pull that 4 outside of the quadrat, or outside of the radical. Now I have this. And 4 times 12 is 48. And now, the reason I didn't take it all the way down, you'll see here in a second. Okay, so this gives me an answer of m equals 4 plus root 12, and m equals 4 minus root 12. What's the sum of those two? Just add them together. Add the 4s, add those.
4 root 12?
No? 2 4s add to 8, and plus.
Oh, add those 2. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Plus root 12 and minus root 12 cancel one another out. So the answer is 8. So that's the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
You said add those 2 together. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we think about it much, we will realize that the moment we have to apply the quadratic formula always gives you irrational answers. Okay? So whatever this first number is, the plus, whatever's in the radical sign, is going to cancel out when I add the 2 solutions. So I know I'm never having it. It doesn't matter. That could be root 17, and it would cancel out with minus root 17. So when they say add the 2 solutions together, you know you're only getting these 2 numbers. Everything else is going to go away.
Right. Okay.
So the question is, really, is it minus 8 or plus 8? And the moment you begin and you put an 8 there and a 2 there, it's a positive number.
Mm-hmm.
So if one really understood the quadratic well, you could get this in like 10 seconds. But without that, you got to go through all the work. And you saw what we had to do. You got to start here. You can't start here. If you don't know the quadratic, you can't start over there. You've got to know the general formula. And that's the way to start all difficult math problems, is by starting with the general formula. All right, let's go down to 14. Have a look at that.
Oh, okay. Okay, B.
Actually, not.
Really?
Yeah, but.
No. You're right. No. Decay. Isn't that going to be A?
Yes, it is A.
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, the initial amount is always the first thing you see. It's this 325. Okay. And what's in the
and then you take 1 and subtract.
What's in the parentheses is 1 minus the rate of decay.
13. Yeah.
So that's why we end up with 0.87. It's not the rate of decay. And if it was growing and not decaying, well, what's in the parentheses is 1 plus the rate of decay. So you always have a 1 being added to either your increase rate or your decay rate.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, shoot. Sorry. I didn't mean to close it out, and I did. I'll be back to it in a second here. All right. So we're going to look at 15 next. Hold on. Let me blow it up because we're definitely going to be doing some writing on this. Okay. In fact, I want to do a couple things here. First of all, I want to see if you know how to do it. And if you don't, let's act like you have to make a good guess.
Okay.
Okay? Because you're going to find yourself in the test doing that. In other words, you're going to come across problems you don't know how to do and try to eliminate some answers that don't make any sense. And then at least if you're guessing between fewer choices, which is tremendous. In other words, if you can eliminate 2 of these choices, you got a 50-50 shot of getting the answer. Okay. First of all, how are we going to do that?
So what's that?
What is called for?
If with dividing, isn't that can't you also use that switch that around and do subtraction?
Well, I think what you mean is instead of doing long division, use synthetic division.
Yeah.
You could use synthetic division.
Okay.
Do you know how to do it?
Sort of.
In this case, long division is going to be better. We'll look at it both ways. Okay?
Okay.
But before we do, let's look at that expression. Is there any way that's equal to 1, which is what that says?
No.
No, it's impossible. In other words, the numerator would have to be the same as the denominator for that fraction to be equal to 1.
Yeah.
So that can't be right. Is there any way it's equal to just a number? That would be 4 1/3. The only way that's equal to 4 1/3 is if the x's cancel. And they do not. In other words, the way they came up with that is for the people that would cross that x out with that x. And you definitely cannot do that. Because both x's, this one has a 3 being added to it. This one is multiplied by a 5 and then subtracting a 2. So there's no way the x's are disappearing. Which means this can't be right. In other words, it can't come down to a number. So we're left with either that or that. Now, I want to show you long division first, just to show you how we're going to come up with that. And then we'll give it a shot at synthetic division also. Long division is actually pretty easy. It's easier than synthetic division for a problem like this. You remember how to do long division manually with numbers?
I believe I do.
Okay. First step here is to divide the x term into that term. What do you get?
5.
Next step is to take the 5, multiply it by both terms. So you get 5x plus 15. And with all long division, you are subtracting always. So we have minus 2 minus 15 is minus 17. Now we're done. What's the answer?
D.
Okay. And when you get a remainder, what it really means is that it's minus 17 divided by your divisor, which was x plus 3. So that's how you get that answer. Okay. Now let's just take a look. You don't need synthetic division on the SAT. You don't need to do it. But how we would do it would be this way. We'd put the answer in the box, not the factor, the answer. In other words, if that is a factor, then the answer for the 0 would be minus 3. And across the top, we put the numbers. We bring the 5 down. And now we're multiplying and adding. So I'm multiplying minus 3 times 5, and then I'm adding 2 to minus, that's a negative 2, excuse me, to minus 15 to get minus 17. That's my remainder. So synthetic division would also give you the answer really quickly. That would mean the answer would be 5 minus 17 over x plus 3. The problem is that synthetic division, if you haven't done it for a while, you don't want to use synthetic division if you're not sure. In other words, you would have to be completely sure as to whether you put a positive 3 or a negative 3 inside the box. And so, like I said, they do not require you to know synthetic division, so I wouldn't even worry about using it on the test. But you do have to know long division. If I divide 5 into 47, it goes in there 9 times, and I multiply 9 times 5, and then I subtract. That's my remainder. So it's 9 2/5 is the answer. So long division isn't hard. It's just you're always subtracting. And subtraction tends to give people more difficulty than addition. So that's why. Now, how do I turn this thing off without closing it out? What did I do? Last time I pushed that X, I'm going to do it again. I don't know what I did last time. All right, let's look at 16. Well, there is no 16. Okay, so now we're in the grid non-calculator part. So these first few will be easy. Take a look at 16. So far we got an award of $250 and $750 out of a total of $3,000. And all of the other bonuses have to be $250 or $750. How much is left to award?
2,000.
Okay, so we got to split that 2,000 up. Could I do all $250 bonuses?
Yeah.
I think so. How many would I be giving? 8.
8? Yeah.
Okay. So what is one possible answer for the number of $250 bonuses awarded?
9.
Correct. And we're on to the next problem. In other words, the last thing in the world you want to do is spend time figuring out other solutions. Because you could
you pick one and be done.
No, you couldn't give 4. You could give 5, and then you'd give one $750 bonus. So there are lots of combinations that work. But once you find one, go ahead and put it in. The only mistake, the most likely mistake somebody's going to make on this problem is to answer 8, forgetting this first one that's already been given out, or at least one has been given out. All right, let's scroll down and look at 17. Should also be relatively easy. Look at this problem, and if you don't know what to do whatever it is you can do. If you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
In other words, I'm looking at this and I say, I'm clueless. I have no idea what to do. So what should I do for a first step?
Foil?
Yes. Well, not FOIL. Multiply, distribute. You got to
Yeah.
multiply this 2x by both of those two terms and multiply that 3 by both of those two terms. So what do you get?
Right. So first one, so 6x plus 10.
Yeah, let's 6x squared plus 10x plus what?
Plus 9x.
No. Excuse me. Sorry.
And then plus 15.
Okay, now simplify that. There's only one x squared term, so that's going to be 6x squared.
Plus 19x plus 15.
Okay. Now, that is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Tell me what b is.
19.
Yeah. In other words, this is a quadratic with each type term, this is a quadratic with each type term, so a is 6, b is 19, and c is 15. That technique is called equating the coefficients.
Sweet.
All right, I think it's over here on the right. Yeah. Geometry. It's not as much, one of the other differences between ACT and SAT is the ACT has a lot more geometry. ACT has about equal geometry with algebra. SAT does not. SAT has like 80% algebra, 20% geometry. So there's not as much geometry on the SAT as there is on the ACT.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
So they're telling us this line is parallel to that one. That is parallel to that. End segment AD.
Oh, 13.
13?
I think so.
Well, first of all, in order to get the length of segment CE, what do we need?
We need the length of segment CB.
Okay. What's the relationship between these two triangles that are similar? What's the scale factor?
1 to 2.
Okay. So what's CB?
5.
5's not 1 to 2 with 8.
Oh. Which one?
It's 4.
I was looking at. Oh, yeah.
What you're looking at is two similar triangles. This triangle is similar to that triangle. And they're similar because these two lines are parallel, making that angle the same as that angle, this angle the same as that angle. So they got three same angles, okay? So once they're similar, then you need a scale factor. You need to know how much every side of the bigger triangle is bigger than every side of the smaller triangle. AB is the corresponding side to BD. Okay?
Yeah, no, I was doing like vertex angles in my head.
Okay. All right.
I was looking at the wrong side.
The whole segment is 12.
Yeah. Because
you have to add it together.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Sure.
All right. Let's look at 19. That's the done of the grid. There's not that many grids. However, we are in the non-calculator section still. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the trig. You're not taking trig this semester, are you?
No, I don't think so.
No, I meant right now.
Oh, no, I don't believe it.
The only trig you've had in your life is what you got in geometry?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
algebra 2, you'll get a little bit towards the end of the semester, I think.
Okay, so I get more this year. Okay.
Unfortunately, there's only 2 or 3 trig questions on the test, okay, as opposed to the ACT that has 4. The difference is the trig questions on the ACT are always easy, very easy.
Okay.
The trig questions on the SAT, even though there's only 2 or 3 of them, they're hard. They're hard trig. Okay. 1 second. I got dogs barking here. I got to figure out what's
Okay.
What's up? Why are all the dogs barking? Sorry about that. Salesman at the door.
Very good.
Hi, go down. Go. All right. What are we're going to do 20. We're just going to skip 19.
Okay.
I could work on 19, but it would take like an hour to explain the trig involved.
Mm.
That doesn't seem to make much sense to try to teach you trig from scratch. And
So, like,
fortunately,
because this is unit circle, isn't it?
what's that?
This is unit circle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is well, it's not a unit circle, but it's a circle similar to the unit circle. And these are grid in. In other words, if we had multiple choice, I would at least give you enough information so that we might have a 50-50 guess. But
Okay.
with a grid in, I'd have to teach you the unit circle, the complete unit circle,
Yeah.
to figure out what this angle is right here. Because that's what they're asking about, is what is that angle? But they're asking it in radians. There's a lot to learn there. They're not even asking it in degrees, okay? So that is definitely a hard problem. This is still the grid in section, but apparently the grid in section has a calculator and a non-calculator part. This is the non-calculator part of the grid in section. Okay, let's look at 20. Let me give you some information here. Which one, that one or this one, has an infinite number of solutions?
The second one?
No, second one you can solve by elimination. You get 2x equals 20, x equals 10, y equals 0. That's the only solution. What produces an infinite number of solutions is when the one equation is exactly the same. Notice in my first one, the top equation is the same as the bottom one. It's just the bottom one's been multiplied by 2, but it's not a different equation. In order to be able to solve using elimination, or when you're solving a system of equations, They have to be different. Otherwise, you're not going to get a solution. You're not going to be able to solve for x and y. The only time you can solve is if they're different equations. Well, that's not different than that. So they're saying what produces an infinitely many solutions? Well, that means what that means is that we need to figure out what makes the top equation the same as the bottom equation. The key is right there. What is the bottom equation been multiplied by?
2.
5. 5 times 12 is 6.
Oh.
In other words, what I'm trying to figure out is what do A and B have to be so that these two equations would be the same. And I don't mean the same, I mean, in other words, x plus y equal to 10 was not the same as 2x plus 2y equals 20, but they really were the same. One is just a constant multiple of the other. If I were to graph it, it would lie right on top. In other words, if you have a straight line and you graph another straight line on top of it, that's an infinite number of solutions. If you have a straight line, you put a parallel line next to it, that's no solution. If you have a straight line and you cross it with another straight line, you have precisely one solution. The situation they're talking about is this one. So we have to figure out how to make the top, because the bottom's fixed already, the top equation has to be a multiple of the bottom equation. And it is. It's 20% of it. The top equation has to be, in other words, the bottom equation has to be 5 times bigger than the top equation every term. They've made this kind of hard, but what it means is 2 over A has to equal 5. Well, that means A equals 2/5. So if I made A 2/5, B has to be 20% of this. So 20% of that, or 1/5 of that, is 8/5. So that's what B is 8/5. Now, before we go further, check it out. The bottom equation is exactly 5 times bigger than the top equation, every term. 2x is 5 times bigger than 2/5 x. 8y is 5 times bigger than 8/5 y. And 60 is 5 times bigger than 12. So now we have everything we need. What is 2/5 divided by 8/5?
That would be 4/5.
Flip and multiply. Know how to divide by a fraction.
Oh yeah. This is division.
So you flip the bottom and multiply. What do you get?
Yeah. 10 over 40.
Okay, believe it or not, that's actually an acceptable answer in the SAT.
Oh, they don't want to simplify it?
Nope, they don't need you to on the grid. However, you got to have enough space to do it. And these grid questions, you may not have enough space to put in 10 over 40. So what would you really put in?
1/4.
And I know that works. So even though you don't need to spend time simplifying it, I believe there's only 4 spots on the grid. Here, let's go back and look. And if there's only 4 places, yeah, see, there's each grid, there's only 4 spots. So you're not going to be able to put 10 over 40 in there.
No. So I have to do 1/4 then.
Yeah, hold on. You could put 2/8, which is what you really got. In other words, it would be permissible to write that, or this. But if you tried writing this, you need 5 spots. You need a spot for every character, and there's only 4 spots there. So you have to simplify down to a point where you can put your answer in.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, you'll notice they made that tough by making the bottom bigger. In other words, the bottom was 5 times bigger than the top. If they would have wanted to make it easier on us, they would have said this. They would have put this as the 60 and this as the 12. And now the top is 5 times bigger, right? So automatically that makes A really easy. That's A is 10. B is 5 times bigger than 8. B is 40. What is A over B? Well, look at that.
Yeah, they just made it harder on purpose.
No, what shocks me is that it's the same answer.
Yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily have to be the same answer. I'm surprised it's the same answer. I didn't expect to get the same answer. The only reason I pointed it out was because if the top were bigger, it's easy to multiply 5 times 2. When the bottom is bigger,
Yeah.
it's harder because you got to divide 2 by 5 and divide 8 by 5. So you end up with fractions. And then they want to know A over B, which means you have to put a fraction over a fraction. And that's how we ended up getting 2/5 divided by 8/5. And incidentally, whenever you see that, you can do that immediately. As long as it's the denominator that's the same in both fractions, then you can just cross it off. If it's the numerator that's the same, you can do that. But that's the same as flipping the bottom and multiplying. Gives me that answer.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for the grid in. And now the calculator test. I guess the whole first part of the test was non-calculator also. Now notice all the formulas they give you, they're all geometry formulas. Plus this down here, the number of degrees in a circle. This would have helped. The number of radians of arc of a circle is 2 pi. So they do give you a little information about radians that would have helped on that trig question, but not enough.
Okay.
So that's all they give you. Anything that you need beyond that, you got to memorize, like the quadratic formula.
Really know that? Okay.
Let's see, I got to get down to 17 or something like that. Nope, what am I doing here? We're starting at 1. Yeah, and once they switch calculator or non-calculator, they start over with their numbering system. In other words, the first part of the test was 1, and this part of the test starts with 1. But when you go to the grid in, they don't. They continue numbering the same, and yet it still goes back to easy to hard. So
okay.
You can't really count on the number being a measure of whether it's easy, medium, or hard. But you can assume that every time you start a new section, whether it starts with a 1 or not, it's going to start with easy, go medium, and hard for that section.
Okay, for that section. Okay.
So this is an easy one.
So C.
Yeah. Scroll down to 2. Go ahead.
This is still not in calculator, right?
No, this is a calculator.
This is. Oh, okay, cool.
Here, let me just. Pretty certain it is. Yep. Although none of these problems is the calculator going to show you how to do them. They
it's just like
they don't
the
do
calculation
problems that the calculator will solve that you wouldn't be able to solve without a calculator.
Yeah. This one's B.
You know that. In other words, don't think the calculator is going to solve the problem. It isn't. What you have to do is set up the ratio. This is a ratio problem. And you can tell because at that rate, okay?
Yeah, so that one's B350.
So I haven't done the math yet, but it's 7 is to 400 as what is to 20,000? And you're saying 350? Yeah, that's 5 times that, or 50 times that, that's 50 times that, which is another way to do it. In other words, you could just take 20,000, divide it by 400, and get 50, and then multiply 50 times 7. Okay, number 3, and 3 is the last one. So 3 could be tough. 2 is probably medium. 1 was easy, 2 is medium, and 3 is probably going to be a little difficult. So we should expect it. In other words, just because it has a number 3 doesn't mean it's easy. It's the third problem on this section. It's the final problem on this section. That's what I should say. So tell me what to write. This one's actually pretty straightforward.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. So you'd write L is equal to.
Hold on. What's L equal to?
Sorry, never mind. Scratch that. So 73 is equal to. Is equal to 24 plus 3.5 m.
Okay, and now what it's asking you to do is what at this point?
Solve for m.
Do it. This is the calculator portion, so this you can use your calculator here, and it actually will help on this problem. You still have to know how to solve an equation.
Right.
What's the first step of solving this equation?
Subtract 24 from both sides.
Okay, so that gives you this. And the next step?
Okay, and then so then you have 49 is equal to 3.5, and then divide 3.5 by on each side.
Okay, now notice one thing. You think you need your calculator. You don't. Look at the answers. Look at how far apart they each are from one another. Obviously, neither of those can possibly be correct. You divide 49 by 3, what do you get approximately? You don't get a 2 as the first digit. If I take 3.5 and divide it into 49, first digit I get is a 1. That means that has to be the answer.
Okay.
Although, since you can use the calculator, go ahead and do it. But if this were a non-calculator section, you wouldn't need the calculator. You wouldn't need to do long division to come up with the exact answer. And that is why you always look at the answers when you're doing problems. Because if you're looking at 4 answers that are really large distances apart, then we don't need an exact answer. We just need something that's close, and we're going to be able to pick the correct answer. All right. Still calculator. Number 4.
Okay. $300.
Okay, good. I was going to say the easy way to do this is how much does he earn per person? Well, he earns 120 divided by 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he earns $15 a person. Now that you know, in other words, 120 divided by 8 is 15. That's how much he earns per person. Times 20 gives you 300. Let's see. Let's go down to 5. I think, yeah, 5 refers to that same problem. In other words, here he earns $120 per 8 people. Let me put the stuff up there. $120 per 8 people. All right, now let's read this.
Okay.
So what do you put in your calculator?
I'm gonna put
These numbers, notice, are all relatively close. So we may need an exact answer.
So A.
8 times what?
But do you have to do A?
No, hold
Can't
on.
you just do point?
Hold on. Look at the key words. The money earned is not 8.
No.
Earned is 120.
Yeah.
Okay. He uses 43% of that to pay costs. The rest of it is his profit. How much percent is his profit?
So his profit's going to be. Hold on. Do you want? Am I getting that? Is it still A?
Well, tell me how you're doing it.
0.43 times 120.
0.43 is what that's not his profit. That's what his expense.
No, yeah. That's what he earns. Oh, wait. Hold on. I got it. I got it now.
So it's 57% is his profit.
Yeah. So yeah, 60. So C.
I'm assuming it's 57% times 120.
Yeah.
0.57 times 120. I would think would be, I don't know, it might not be 68. Do that on your calculator. It could be 77. That's a hard one to do.
Yeah, I just did it at 68.
That's 68? Okay.
Yeah.
That's one that the calculator would be helpful, but not necessary. Okay. Give me an equation that states sentence 1 on number 6.
Okay. So 4x plus 12 equals 8.
What number results when 2 times x is added to 7? So what do we have to do first?
Make another equation?
No, you got to solve that equation for x. In other words, when you have one equation and there's only one variable, you can always 100% of the time solve for it.
Okay.
That's an equation and there's only one variable, x. So let's solve for it.
Okay. So x equals -1.
Okay. Now the rest of it's easy. What number results when you do 2 times x plus 7? What's that equal?
Let's see, 2 -2 plus 7, 5.
Correct. Maybe have time for one more. Let's see how tough it is. Okay, we had a problem like this almost exactly on the first practice test. And the only difference was the first practice test, they asked which one shows you the vertex. This one says which one displays the x-intercepts. Which one do you think displays the x-intercepts?
D.
What'd you say?
D.
D. In other words, x-intercept format is this. Y equals sum A times x minus P times x minus Q. Well, there's only one of those that even looks like that. That's right there. It's not to say that some of the others couldn't be correct. They could be. But notice that that factors quite nicely. If I factor that, it's x minus 2 times x minus 4, which is exactly that. Not only, so that tells me that that function is the same as they gave us, and it's in x-intercept form, so we know where the x-intercepts are. They're at 2 and 4. In other words, the x-intercepts are P and Q. So you want to know these formats for a parabola, at least the vertex format and the x-intercept format. We've already seen they are asking questions that do require you to know that. Okay. Now my guess is that all of these are this function, all 4 of them. So you can't just solve these, and when you get it, in other words, this one definitely is A. So you can't solve it by just finding whichever of these equals that function. All 4 of them do. That's not the question. The question is which format shows you the x-intercept. These do not, whereas this one does.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Ben, I will make a note. We got through 7, and I'll talk to you next Saturday.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.